My name is Fred Cook, and I drive school bus.
My name is Leanne Murchie, and I'm a school bus driver for TCAPS. It's been a very wonderful experience.
When I first hired in, one of the previous bus drivers told me that this particular job, driving a school bus, is the best job on earth. So I immediately took to it, and I have to agree that this is one of the best jobs that anyone can do.
What prompted me in the very beginning, I have a college degree, and she said, "You're in the safest vehicle in the world on the road." So I thought, well, I'm going to try. Because I would be on the same time schedule as my own children. And when they were off, I was off. When holidays, I was there. So it was the best of both worlds. TCAPS offers jobs elsewhere within the system.
Between routes, I used to, for 12, 13 years, I did lunch duty over at East Middle School, and now I paint.
They're real good about finding people the hours that they need during the course of the day to make the job great. We have Mesa
I'd like
Insurance.
to thank the audience for attending. Viewers may watch Board of Education meetings and board committee meetings live on TV 190 or online at tcaps.net/board. Recorded meetings may be viewed on demand at the same address. Is there any public comment?
There is not.
All right. Then we'll move on to visual performing applied arts presentation. Deferring to Dr. Van Wagner.
Yes, so want to take the opportunity to welcome Wendy Wolfschlarf, and she may also have some other of our music and performing arts staff with her. Not in the room, so I can't see that other way. But we had a great presentation at our curriculum committee meeting. And so in order to have as many of our board members be able to hear that, we were able to also schedule it for this meeting, where two of you have not heard it yet. So Flanoy, I know, has, but I know she's always welcome to hear it again and again, as essentially somebody that dedicated their life to our music program and as a teacher here. So I know that she thoroughly enjoys to hear this, as do I know many of us in the proud aspects we have of our performing arts program and all of our programs here at TCAPS. So what we're going to do is have a presentation for you that I've asked them to put together based on board member feedback, wanting to hear from different constituencies within our district on their ideas as far as facilities and the facility study that's being done to inform of that, as well as the board. So I will go ahead and pass it over to Wendy.
Great. Thank you, John. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share our information with you today. I do have Thomas Vieira with me, who is the Director of Bands at Central High School and also teaches at East Middle School. So the collage we have here on our first slide, I love that because it shows our students in our music program out in the community. It shows all levels of our program, from elementary, our youngest learners, to our secondary, whether it's on the marching field or on the stage in one of the musicals that we present on an annual basis. It might be helpful to know a little bit more about the history if you aren't familiar with our program. What we have here that's unique in TCAPS is we have a fabulous instruction set up with general music, band, orchestra, and choir. Many school districts have one or two, but not to be able to have outstanding areas in all four of those medias. A foundation piece is our specific curriculums, grades K through 12. Back in 2004, we started our alignment, K-12, with our curriculums, and we continue to upgrade those to meet the needs of our students and to be with the current times that we're in. It is a pride point where we have districts from around the state and beyond that would have asked if they could purchase our curriculum. We don't have a textbook series, so we put this together based on our values and our practices and what we feel is best for students. We haven't sold it yet, just as a matter of fact, but that it is great that people want to use it. Our students are recruited by colleges and universities, not only as music majors, but just as for participation in their programs. We have the good fortune of having college educators want to come and work with our students here in Traverse City because they know the caliber of our student and whether or not they're going to be a music major or they're coming to go to the engineering school or any of the other various future opportunities for them. They know that our students have gone through rigor and they are dedicated and have come out with excellent products in that process. Millions of dollars in scholarships have been offered, and while our Michigan schools know about us, it's a pride point to be able to say such schools as Eastman and the New England Conservatory also are clamoring for our students. Example of lifelong learners, which is a goal I know of all of us in the TCAPS community, can be found as we have many alumni who stay in this area, and you continue to find them performing in ensembles at NMC, with the Traverse Symphony Orchestra in their civic groups, as well as when they leave our community, they're also performing in their communities or continuing to have music be a part of their life. We have a list of accomplished professionals who have continued to take music as their career path, and it's difficult to kind of single some of them out. I'm very excited that we have several graduates who have come back to Traverse City to be music educators. There are music educators all across the state that wear that proud TCAPS alumni badge. And we also have those who have moved beyond, and just two to highlight, and there are many, but Brian Katona comes to mind. Brian is a graduate who is a composer and a conductor, and right now is working out, it has been reaching and being in touch with me, is working on a project with, you might have heard of John Williams, when you're talking film scores and things of that nature, working on a project that will be presented at Carnegie, in which our students are being encouraged to participate in. We also have Stephen White, who is blazing the trail as a member of the New York Metropolitan Opera Orchestra, which again, no small accomplishments there. Very well deserved, and we're very excited for them. I'm going to turn things over to Thomas to talk about the quality facilities in that aspect of our program.
Hello, I'm Thomas. I teach at Central High School and I teach at East Middle School, and I think it's just worth it to note, I had never been to Traverse City before I took this job and moved here, and I think that speaks to the quality of the program. That I grew up down in Metro Detroit, started my career in Indianapolis, and made the move here just because I knew how strong these programs were and how much support they already receive from this board and from this community. So I think that's really great, and I think this whole thing is really great as well. Just talking about quality teaching facilities overall, and I can speak for myself personally at Central and East, there's a need for expanded classroom size and space, as we have too many students to safely and productively fit into the current classrooms. Thinking about full orchestra rehearsal where we have 55 to 60 musicians kind of in that room, there's no way to put them in the room. You know, we're wall to wall as it is right now. So I think just expanding that space and giving us more square footage on the ground will help us, you know, make better music and give the students a better experience. Some of our classrooms do not meet OSHA standards and are unsafe for students and staff due to the decibel levels that occur during rehearsals. Like, I just came from my first hour class, symphony band of 42 students, and in that hour, we peaked at 108 decibels, which is only safe for about 5 minutes total in the entire day, which we didn't sustain that level of volume, but we sustained the volume of about 96 to 98 decibels, which is only safe for about an hour, which is the time that the students are in class. So if you think about them meeting every day and kind of over the course of the entire year, that's kind of hearing loss for not only them, but for me as well as a teacher. We have millions of dollars invested in instruments and necessary equipment, but do not always have the adequate storage to securely store them. Currently, we're using valuable and needed teaching space as storage, and in reality, this affects the classroom teaching as well, as the proper storage of the instruments. I know in my classroom and in Mr. Jones' classroom, in the orchestra room, Ms. Williams' classroom, there's kind of stuff on the periphery, and just having a space where that can go would give us a lot of extra square footage to help the students and help us. Upgrades have been completed in the auditoriums in West and Central for sound, lights, and aesthetics, but both need acoustical updates, larger performance stages, and storage. We really do appreciate the updates, and when you walk into our auditorium at Central and at West, you walk in and you're like, wow, this is really beautiful. And then you kind of sit in the front row and you're 10 feet below the stage at Central, and it's kind of hard to not only see the students and see your kid perform, but also to hear them. If the sound's going over your head, you're not always getting the best view of that performance. Ventilation in many of our classrooms is an issue. I know that that's an entire district thing. Factors include the large number of students in one class and that we're breathing at a higher rate. If you think about it, we're using our air and we're taking deeper breaths, so we're pushing air out and we're exchanging that air a lot more than a normal classroom, right? So warm air and more bodies in the class lead to more temperature increases. I know last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, when it was really warm, right? I brought in a little temperature gauge and my room got up to 88 degrees. So that, was uncomfortable. Obviously, we made it through, right? But, in the future, it would be something that would be nice to have air conditioning, for lack of a better word. And lastly, we'd like to use more technology in our classes, smart boards and things like that. But we just need to get those purchased and installed and laid out, as well as physical layout in the screens or in the classrooms. So I'll turn it back over to Wendy to talk about our facility.
So on the slide before you, we have the 4 different auditoriums that are currently being used at high schools around the state of Michigan. We do appreciate the modifications that have been made to our current auditoriums, but they really are not good enough. For instance, at Central High School, we've got those modifications. We've done some upgrades to lights and to sound, but our sound person, or the light person, who is our light designer for Into the Woods, has brought in, and bless his heart, donated these additional lights for this production, because what we have isn't adequate enough for that artistic vision that the creative team has. The 4 examples here, you have Fruitport High School. That school enrollment is 2,500. East Grand Rapids, to the opposite side of that, is a very impressive facility, and their enrollment is 2,800 for their K-12 program. Reefs Puffer is 3,400. And that's just a photo of their stage with the acoustic shell that is flexible and movable, and the high fly space. And then last but not least, Saline has 4,900 students. So I share that photo with the idea that we are significantly larger and a very active program and would utilize the space. And as we're talking about potentially looking at Lars Hockstedt as being a potential district-wide venue where not only TCAPS, but the community at large. We have people who rent out our facilities for their performances, whether it's TSO or dance companies. I think we open the door for even more of those collaborations if our facilities could meet those needs. So speaking of Lars, turn that back over, and here's just what a vision is from our department of what is needed with that facility. If we look at it from a district perspective, Thomas will talk about that.
Yeah, and Wendy was mentioning just how and one of my favorite things about this district is that it's kind of a shining beacon in northern Michigan of excellence in everything that we do, from academics to athletics to art to STEM to everything that we do, I think is really top quality. And I think that Lars could be one of those shining examples of, our community at large would come and rent that space out. It would be additional revenue for us, and it would be something that we could kind of hang our hat on of like, wow, look at this great, space that we have to share in the multiple different art forms that we can provide. As stated earlier, each high school has auditoriums that are utilized. Lars would be the district-wide auditorium that would be utilized by TCAPS as a whole, and if it's built with the 21st century in mind, the surrounding area would be also using this space. Just talking about having a district concert venue, quality facilities that has the potential to increase revenues, like I said earlier. It needs to be state-of-the-art for us to use that to its maximum capacity with lights and sound and technology. Larger stage area, fly space, like Wendy was talking about before with Reese Puffer's auditorium. Pit space, so a pit that is able to go down on a mechanical lever and back up, and not one that the maintenance team would have to construct and take down and then take back up and lift up, but something that could be mechanically operated. Storage for on-site equipment, piano shelves, risers, percussion equipment, stands, chairs. Increased seating capacity, appropriate front-of-house space that includes a box office or ticketing kiosk, and designated bathrooms and a vestibule that serves as a soundproof barrier. Additional space for large and small teaching rooms and rehearsal rooms and dressing rooms. One of the things you'll find with and I can talk about band specifically because I'm primarily a band person, but we have a lot of stuff, right? And it doesn't stack well, right? When you're thinking about these keyboard percussion instruments, you can't exactly just put them up on a shelf. Like they all have to be on the ground because it takes about 5 or 10 minutes to put together. And if you're talking about 5 or 10 minutes to put it together, 5 10 minutes to take apart, all of a sudden that's 20 minutes of class time that the student's not learning, that they're spending just assembling and disassembling stuff. So that would be very, very helpful for us, as well as parking. Obviously, parking is a larger issue across the entire community, but that would be something that we could look into. If we're utilizing it for the larger community and we want to draw larger audiences, we also need places for them to park. So that would be something to consider as well. Thanks.
The foundation of our program is our elementary general music program, and we're excited to be able to touch those students and reach them and build that love of music, starting with their kindergarten and then next year with our junior kindergarten grades. As school enrollment fluctuates from building to building, from year to year, having a designated classroom in each elementary school for music would be amazing. Right now, if a school, for instance, has a larger enrollment and they need another classroom because they don't have a grade level, another open space, what often happens is music and possibly art, they get moved to either on a cart, they get moved to the library, they get moved to the cafeteria, and they don't have the designated space, carpet, significant room size for movement, and all of the aspects of our curriculum, including sound, projectors, that technology piece. We know that nobody wants to see music or art on a cart, and yet that is a reality. And so by having a designated classroom for what is called, when we're doing scheduling, specials, not quite sure how that name ever came about, but it's something that is historically part with art, PE, and music, to have designated space for those. Our materials are not such as Thomas was saying. You don't stack them on a cart. It's not a set of books. There are instruments. There are hand manipulatives that help students experience music, be able to move to music. So to have storage that is significantly for those would be ideal. Makes them safe. It helps us have them have a longer lasting life. It's a responsible thing for us to be able to do. And where we place that needs to be in a logical place for the classroom. We did have a build a while back that we were very excited because we had storage. And one of the things we wanted to be able to do was to have some small group assessments in that storage. But what we learned was that they had put the electrical box in that storage area, which does not allow us to have students in that in that space. So was that done intentionally? Absolutely not. But it's just one of those things to be considered that, we did try for those, but the reality was it wasn't completely practical. So we need to take care of that foundation piece for us.
Wendy, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
When a music classroom has to be given up for another teaching space, can you explain what on a cart means?
So what that means is you have let's say you have your lesson plan, and often a teacher in a day is going to see a kindergarten, a first grade, a second grade, a third grade, a fourth grade, a fifth grade. Now they don't happen, ideally they would be in sequence, but that's not the case. So you put everything that you're going to need for that day, including a keyboard, your stereo system, and any of the manipulatives, as well as your computer on a cart, and you go from room to room. And a classroom is set up with desks, which that's not so much of what we do is movement and physically participating and feeling the lesson that's happening. You can't do that in a classroom. And a prime example of even, I know it goes beyond Flanoy's question, but Traverse Heights is a great example. We were so excited. We designed that music room for Traverse Heights. It's right in the door. It's close to the gym where we give our presentations. And I believe we were in that music room for 1 year. And then we got moved because they needed a preschool room, and then we needed that room to be something else. So it's now been in the art and music room, which is a tile floor that has tables and chairs, and so that's constantly being moved, and I think it's even gone to another location. So again, the plans were initially there and taken care of, but as the needs of the school change, that's just one of the first rooms to be able to be modified for a curricular classroom.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So music has often been called the gem for our district. We're very proud of that. The idea of the fact that we know our music programs draw families to the school district as an open enrollees. They come because of the arts, and we welcome them. That's terrific. Our music programs have stood the test of time by receiving countless awards, accolades, and recognition over the last 50 years. We are constantly being invited to perform at state conferences. We work hard, the product is fabulous, but we're really proud of that process, and we want to keep that going. Lastly, I think it's important as we look at the competitive market for qualified educators. I appreciated Thomas saying that he came here because he knew the quality of the program. He hadn't seen the facilities. I don't know if that would have made a difference or not, but we're grateful that he's here. But if we want to attract exceptional educators, we need to have the facilities that will support those talents. So, last but not least, this slide is the idea that, we all want the best for our TCAP students. They deserve to have facilities that will help them thrive and reach their full potential. Students are proud members of their music program. They describe it as being their home, their community, their family. And we want to keep that going. That is just as much of, music has often been a part of that social emotional learning piece. How we build that rapport and that consistent support is really critical now, as it has been throughout time. But it's innate; it happens here. Improvements to our facilities. With those improvements, we could potentially remove barriers that are in our way right now, so that we can't meet all of the student needs, or expand even what we offer to our students because of the limited facilities. The students deserve to have facilities that will help them thrive, and we are excited that the 2024 bond issue is about building for the future, is about sustaining, it's about providing quality for all of our students. And it's exciting to be a part of that. So not only for TCAPS, but for our community, because we know we're all intertwined there, and that's a terrific aspect of it. So on behalf of the entire K-12 district, Thomas was, he has a co-teacher with Peter Deneen, so that's how Thomas is able to be here today. But all the rest of my colleagues are off teaching, or they would be here as well. But we do represent them, and we appreciate the opportunity to share our needs and are here to answer any questions you might have.
I've got a couple, just one. Of those venues that you cited, the Fruitport, East Kentwood, Reeves, Puffer, and Saline, do you know the capacity of those auditoriums?
The smallest one is, my understanding, is Fruitport, which is 783 seats.
What's Lars' capacity? I know it's fluctuated a couple.
We lost some seats with the renovations. I think it's now at like 835 is what I want to say. And acoustically, that space is, from a seating capacity, is, it's good. But the stage is, we can't fit ensembles on it, or they're stacked on top of each other. Or even when TSO uses that space, it's like sardines.
Right.
And what's like central and west? Like how big's the capacity?
540, and I want to say 550, 560 at west. The 540 is at Central. And those two facilities, as a whole, you walk in there and you say, oh yeah, that's great. But for instance, in the choral program, I teach at both Central and West, and oftentimes our students cannot be in the auditorium if you have all the performing ensembles because the audience is too large. At one school, we divide, I'll speak to the choral aspect, we divide the concert into 2 concerts because we want our students to be able to see their colleagues performing, as well as having all of their parents. So that's the only way we can accommodate the audience just for our curricular performances, let alone if we want to be creative and do collaborations and combined. That usually sends us to a gym, or it sends us, recently we did the Composer in Residence program, where we combined the high school and middle school top ensembles with Jake Narvarud, and we needed to go to Corson, which is a beautiful facility, and we appreciate that, but we also have to pay a significant amount of money in order to be able to perform there. And, there's upkeep. We understand why they charge, but.
So on that note, like how large of a venue is needed?
I think in a practical sense, if we're looking at community, 12 to 1,800 seats.
And then for like just an open facility, how big of a space is needed for in just a large building, I guess, is for the largest you can think of.
Remember, I'm a music teacher. I don't do well with spatial.
No, that's fine. And you don't have to answer that now. I think that's just going to come up as well, is trying to figure out the maximum space we need.
After talking with the curriculum committee earlier this week, they were saying that they're planning to do some site visits, and I'm not sure where those are. And if this committee will be a part of that as well. But I would encourage folks to come and look at what we have. And then when you go, you will find that practice rooms, or for instance, at Central, you have the band and orchestra room together, but the choir room is way off in a completely other wing. And it would be ideal to have all of those. You share equipment, you share kids in one space. But I think you'll find that the other schools have these newer places, like I have judged at Reeves Puffer. The idea is that the instrumental storage for all of it is all consolidated in one space, lockers for instruments. It's like a common area. And so it's efficient use, but it just looks massive when you first take it on and know that ours is all kind of cut up.
That's a good idea. John, is that something we could do? Board members individually could visit West and Central and see the facilities before we go downstate for visits?
I think we've lost
Gonna say.
connection with
Losing?
Dr. Van Wagner.
Okay.
Just disappeared.
I feel like that's something that could, if board members who are going on those trips could go see, so you have kind of a comparison to make there.
As we bring alumni through, when they're coming through, whether it's a class reunion, I'll say it at Central, because even now West is 26 years old. And it looks great. But at Central, there's something to be said when they come and say, hey, this looks exactly like the same, only we don't have to walk outside to get to the facilities. That's a little bit of a concern. We're grateful for what we have, but nevertheless, that was in 1952, 54 when that was built, so just a little old.
How many elementary schools have designated music rooms?
It fluctuates from year to year. Right now, I'm aware of, I want to say 4 or 5 that have a shared art music room.
Okay.
And I believe there's only one school that has maybe 4 or 5 classes that, because of those shared rooms, they have to meet we see kids twice a week. We see students twice a week in the music program. So they move to the library maybe for their second class. It's not a whole school, but because the art teacher can only be there to fit in so many sections, et cetera, how that efficient schedule is built, that's where you have that on a cart piece.
Can you imagine a biology teacher having to pack up their classroom and put it on a cart and go from room to room teaching? So,
You just said that. That was my music theory. I have an AP music theory class at Central High School, and last year, it was new as of 2 years ago, and last year we started in the band room because music theory is a little bit different than another class because you have to have pianos that are set up, and again, the setup and tear down time kind of takes away from minutes that we can be working with the students, right? So we want to leave the pianos set up. We want the desks to be set up so they can work on the desk and write music at the same time. So just finding a space in our building that already is short on classrooms was a little bit difficult. So we started in the band room, and then we moved to a space that had desks, a different classroom that was turned into the health and PE room. So they were in the PE cycle of their health and PE class. Then when they moved to the health cycle, we had to move out of that class, and the only space that we had was the teacher's lounge. So we had a portable keyboard cart that we would have to take out the keyboards. We would all work at the communal tables, and we made it work, and it was fine. But just having a dedicated space like that, like having a secondary classroom where we can set up a percussion ensemble, where we can set up a jazz band that permanently can stay there, or we can set up a music theory classroom, or just like another lab would be super, super helpful and appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, you hear comments about, that we should be focusing on reading, writing, and arithmetic, but I think we'd be doing our students a significant disservice if we didn't have top-notch programs in, arts and athletics and STEM. And, I really appreciate you guys coming and highlighting, this program. And, the basics only go so far. So I think, developing creativity and analytical well-roundedness through those extracurricular activities are also super important. So thanks.
Thank you. Definitely an area I have the least experience. I come from a very musical family, but unfortunately I inherited zero of it. So I appreciate it.
Yes.
I do appreciate it.
Likewise, I also not musically inclined, but my wife has a BFA, and she's very critical, and she spoke volumes of Into the Woods. So Yeah.
which I also did attend. It was great. So, yep, thanks.
All the performers need audience members too.
Yes.
So you guys play a role as well.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks, you guys.
Right. Oh, we do have John back. Do you want to bring up your point just before you forget?
On a quick note, I'm back, so everybody knows.
Oh,
Yeah.
John, I was asking about, before we go downstate, could board members schedule just a quick drop-in at like West and Central to see the music facilities there, so they have something to compare to what we have compared to what we're going to be seeing downstate?
I'm glad you brought that up because I've got a little bit of an idea. So I'm going to be honest, we're really, really struggling with people's calendars to get anything concrete. More than 4 board members, and that's only on one date, otherwise it's 3. So one of the things I'm wondering, and Larry's in the other room, they go, huh? But one of the things that actually came to my mind this morning is, we, in our last session for curriculum, when we had the presentation from Wendy and her team, we talked about seeing some of those other sites, and to value board members' time and to get everybody an opportunity to see that. What would you guys think about me trying to do a little bit of a road show with Larry and going to all these different venues and things and actually doing a really, really good video tour of all those facilities, having that in something that we can actually maybe produce. And that's also something that we have to be able to share with our community and others on what those things look like in comparison across, and we can actually put a little production together and be able to share that across. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that's a great idea. I think that, not only for the education of the board, but also, like you said, the education of the community. I think that'd be really probably well needed.
Right. I mean, ideally, to be there in person would be the best. But if we can't get enough people there, then that's the next best scenario. But
and we could do a little bit of both, a hybrid. For the ones that can go on the one date that we have. And really we only have 3 for an early June date. Otherwise, we're all the way to the end of June to get 4, and we can't get any more than that at all. So maybe those board members that can go, we take that. I try and schedule it where Larry's able to go with us, and we kind of do a mix of both from that standpoint. That way, we have something that every board member can see and our community.
That way, if board members can go, great. If they can't, then there's at least a backup, or we can. And obviously, if they really feel the need to, we can make alternative arrangements one-on-one.
Absolutely, and I've seen a lot of those facilities. So if my schedule's not working with the other board members, that's fine. But I'm not sure. I might not have heard that if you answered my question about can board members visit West and Central.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we can. All I'd ask is that board members, with any visits that we have, anytime you're in a building, that you coordinate it with Megan and my office. That way principals, teachers, others know that you guys are coming. That's always something I do get feedback from teachers and administrators when they get a surprise of a board member in, or, if I get a surprise that I haven't heard of a board member coming in, sometimes people are worried they're getting maybe even evaluated and different things. So we can definitely set that up, and I'd be happy to take you guys through it. I know Wendy and her team would as well. So that's something that we can do. And like I said, I'd like to, when we do that, to go ahead and video it as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And Flynn, as you bring that up, I hope it's okay for me to interject here, but it's important that you visit the middle schools also, and not just Central and West high schools, because the middle school facilities are even older. And while some renovations have been done, when you look at the list of that itemize the things that we have listed as priorities for us in the music department, looking at facilities, a significant portion are at that middle school level. And that's critical for us.
Right, exactly. And maybe you've cited Traverse Heights for the elementary school, and maybe take a look at what that classroom was designed to be, a music room, what it is now, and what a cart looks like.
Sure.
Well, all right. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it. All right, moving on to the next item, Safer Kids, Safer Schools presentation, deferring to Dr. Val Magna.
Yeah, so we have Jay Berger with us today, and so the board, I know from the inception of this group of community individuals to take a look at wanting to see what can our community do and understand and learn about so many of the safety issues that we have, but also the tragedies that have gone on across the country. What can our community learn from that? And so there's been this community group that's been meeting now for, I want to say, probably about 9 months. And I've had the chance to attend one of their recent community forums. We were really, adamant on making sure that the board really, or the superintendent, or any of my central office team were a part of this, because we wanted to make sure that all thoughts could be said, and there wasn't any worry about what one of us might think or that. So I think Jay and Kathy Guy and all of the folks that have contributed to this group have done a really nice job of having the conversation about what can be done, what can the community do, what can they help support. And so I know that you've had the chance to get a draft report from Jay and Kathy on what that group's been doing. But again, they've been having some community forums even since then. So the board was very interested in having Jay come today and do a presentation. And then Monday night, we will actually have Kathy there to do the presentation, same presentation. But I thought it was important as we do everything, go through our committee structure. And so we have Jay with us today to talk about the work that they've been doing.
Thank you so much. And I always like when I get the opportunity to speak to you to thank all the educators. I have a bigger appreciation every time I visit with an educator. It was great to hear the music people. You'll hear one of our findings is connection. And connections is different things to different people. Sometimes it's a shop class, sometimes it's music, sometimes it's something else. So I don't care as a parent what it is. I just want kids to be connected. So teachers, educators are really that glue to find that spark for people. So thank you. I have a special appreciation for board members. Board members are retired or they have jobs and they still try and do all this stuff. So thank you. I'm not the smartest tool in the shed, but I know don't run for board because, as I've stuck my toe in this stuff, it is complex. It is, if it was easy, it would have been fixed already. And people have an opinion about it. And more than anything, I think we all share an opinion about keeping our kids safe. I think as adults, we're hardwired, or almost all of us are hardwired to keep our kids safe. And when they're not safe or we see kids that aren't treated that way, it's heartbreaking. And it happens in every community. We're not unique in any way that we have kids that aren't in crisis and trauma, or that we have more. I don't know those numbers. I just know they're here, and it's a challenge. The other thing I'll say before I start my presentation is I try not to think a whole bunch about it, but you can't. When you see parents and you see communities that have been impacted by shootings, it doesn't leave. It's always part of the conversation. And people know about the Oxford shooting. There's people in our community that have nieces and nephews or grandkids that were at Oxford. And the community has changed forever. There's another group in town called Moms Demand Action, completely separate from our task force. But they're going to show a documentary at the State Theater on October 18th called After Parkland. And one of the dads is going to speak at a panel discussion after that. He lost his son. And that was 2018. And you'll talk with the people, and they end up at divorced, or their families get blown apart that because of this event. And I wanted to be part of a group to look at what we could do in advance of that. So that's kind of the background for Safer Kids, Safer Schools. I know you all got the packet, so I'll try not to spend a whole bunch of time on things, but I got the wrong slide up there.
Any jump like profile?
So here's the history. Oxford shooting was November 2021. Uvalde, Texas was May of 2022. A bunch of concerned citizens spoke at the TCAPS board meeting in June. And hats off to the board. The board is, I would say, as someone who hasn't interacted with the board before, good listeners, very responsive. and really took some immediate steps to get in front of the lines so they could do the audit with the third-party group, the security education consultants. And then we were working to say, you know, security is a community responsibility. So what can community members do to help support our schools? Again, one of the cross tangential parts of doing this is we need to be able as a community to support our educators and to support our administrators. And the people who have come and given their ideas in these community input sessions really want to do that. I like to think of them as the silent majority. They are appreciative of what you do. They are appreciative of our music programs and our sports programs, our academic programs. And they just don't show up at meetings. And we have to change that. And I think that's a really important part that I see happening from some of these community input sessions. So anyway, we worked on behind the scenes getting this together. And then I always use the explanation of it's okay, you're the dog that caught the car. You know, people say, go ahead and do it. And then you're like, oh, shoot, now, you know, we got to raise a bunch of money and get people together. And so we did that between really June and October. And then we came up with this draft report in March. And, you know, the task force was some really great people. We had a mission, you know, what can we do? Are we doing everything in our power to keep our kids safe? Wanted to get it done quickly. We didn't want this thing to go on forever. I'm already kind of amazed that it's coming on a year already, which in a lot of ways is a disappointment. In a lot of ways, it's a complex problem. And then focus on actions that people could take locally. You know, again, one of the things people say is, I feel hopeless or helpless, or there's nothing I can do. And I think that's one of our focuses too. What can community members do? Where can we help dispatch them if they have energy? The other thing that I'd say is we need to support parents. I had my eyes open in my own family. You know, a lot of the parents who are fortunate to have stable households start their morning at 5 o'clock. They do whatever they do in the morning, get their kids to daycare or school at 7 o'clock. Then they maybe have an after school meeting. Then they try and get dinner somewhere and then people like me want them to come to another session. So, you know, I would call it the comb-over generation. You know, guys like me have to step up and help families, right, to help our kids be safe. So it is really a big community part. Again, I won't read the slide, but we got 30 people together, great people from TCAPS and outside of TCAPS, grandparents, parents, nonprofit people. Hired a facilitator and a couple pros to help us with that. We had 7 meetings that went, I think, really well. And we came up with this draft report. And I'll tell you, at the end of the draft report, or when we sat down after those meetings, it wasn't crystal clear like, oh, there's one thing we can do that's going to make everything better. There is not one thing you can do to make this issue better. It is complex, and so there's different layers. But these were the 5 key points that the draft came up with. And we're doing these community input sessions to say, did we miss anything? Or, you know, what can we add to this list and how can we prioritize things? But number one is you can't fortify your way to safety. We were fortunate to have 3 students on the task force, super sharp, all women, a shout out to the women. Guys don't get involved in this stuff. And that's a big part of the problem because guess what? 95% of the shooters are guys. So there's a big disconnect there. But you know, kids are smart. If they want to get in and harm people, they're going to get into the school and harm people. So TCAPS has done a great job, it sounds like, because again, I know you can't share that with the community, the full details, but everything that you've done, the visit from Dana Nessel, the SEC report, has been positive. And again, you've been good to say there's more work to do. But again, there's a diminishing return there. You can't fortify your way to safety. You have to look at some of the messier things, and those are harder. They're way harder. I mean, fortifying a school is hard, but, you know, getting to young men before they blow up is 10 times harder. And we need to make it a priority in our district that we're going to be the gold standard for doing that. And the challenge is there's not a roadmap for that. You know, some stuff works, some stuff doesn't work, people leave, but it needs that same continuity because you can't just start at one time. And again, it's not just a school thing, it's a community thing. So that's a really big deal. Earlier intervention is critical. Patrick McManus has started already some Michigan training on behavioral threat assessment work. That's part of the Social Security's Secret Service, findings, which very much align with the work that we did as well. Number 3 is a big deal. Schools can't do it all. Again, going back to my initial comments about educators, we ask you all to do too much. We ask our school systems to do too much. But guess what? That's the American culture. It's different in Europe. It's different in other places. They have other organizations where communities can be involved. And it's hard as a parent, as a community member, grandparent. Sometimes schools want us involved, and a lot of times they think we make the problems worse. So, there's this tension there of how do you take people who do want to be involved and help, and how do you integrate them so they are really helping? I'd be the first to tell you, there's a lot of parents that are bad examples. You don't want them in the schools coaching kids. So again, how do you get more hands on deck, but navigate that? Again, we're trying to figure out how to make a recommendation on that. This is the big one, and again, it ties in so well with the music piece. Some students, and again, I think when you talk to people, you don't want to give the impression that, hey, all of our kids are in this spot. They're not. But the problem is with guns of mass destruction and weapons of mass destruction, all you need is one to be that person who's lonely and explodes. So by talking about this, I don't want to be profiling people. I don't want to be saying, our kids are in really a bad spot. There's a lot of things going on, but this is a small percentage. And doing the things, again, like TCAPS does, is really critical. But the ones that really tend to be a problem is people who are isolated and disconnected and feel like they don't have anything to lose. Sometimes those kids are on the radar, and sometimes they're not. In Oxford, the teachers, when they had left the building, were texting each other, and they said, was it so-and-so that did the shooting? They had a sixth sense that they knew it was going to be this kid. Other times, person's not been to the principal's office, they haven't been to see the counselor, they just go home, maybe been rejected or made fun of or bullied, and then they just stew on it and get into an environment where it continues to escalate. So that's a really big deal. Again, is that an easy one to fix? No, it's super hard, like all these are. And then again, community awareness is necessary to engage helpers. I think that's something that I think that we've helped do because people are eager to be involved and they want to help. They just need a little bit of a track to run on. I put it in the next few slides together, and they're consistent with my poor use of PowerPoint, but at least they tell the story. Back in the day, they would have been stick figures. But, when we started this process, we thought the way you get to safer kids and safer schools is you make the school a fortress. And you put the kids in there and say, at least while they're there, they'll be safe. But, there's a shooting in Illinois where a guy shot up, a parade. If we fortify our schools and the base causes are still there, they're going to shoot up the open space or a Cherry Festival parade. We watched this great video. It's a sad video about this guy called I Was Almost a School Shooter. And he bought a gun, and he said he didn't care if it was the food court or the school. He just wanted everybody to feel as crappy as he did. And the other one that came out from some of the interviews of past shooters, actual shooters, people asked him, what's the one thing that could have changed your mind? And the answer was consistent, and it was one person. So, this is after the work we did. You can't just put your fortify your way to safety. You need the community on the outside, and then you need these early intervention teams to try and help these kids before they explode. This is another chart I think that's really good. It's messy, but life is messy. So if we want this objective of safe students and safe schools, it's not just secure buildings. That's one part of it, but it's secure firearm storage, and I know you've passed a resolution for that. That's a big deal. In most of these shootings, the shooters get access to guns from family members. Suicide prevention, again, a common element is many of them are suicidal. So they don't really care if they get caught. That's part of the process. Another one is communication and training. There's a very good program called OK to Say that the students are relatively familiar with. But again, more training is there. And more training and awareness for community members. Community members don't know about that. They don't know if they can call. They don't know who they should call if something like that happens. So there's a gap there between the schools and the community that we need to figure out how to communicate with better and leverage so we can get more helpers. And then well-being. I don't like the term personally mental health. I think it's too much stigma on it. But you're all well aware there's a crisis, not for all students, but for a big portion of students regarding mental health. And it involves a whole bunch of societal issues. Everybody has opinions on that. And thank you for getting the documents so understanding to continue counseling at the schools where kids are. It's a huge, huge deal. And, we talk in the community about the schools too woke or not woke enough. And I don't even want to have that discussion. All I know is we need to meet kids where they're at. If we need to meet them for music, if we need to meet them for, a field house, that's our job. Our job is to take the resources of community and meet these kids where they're at. They're not going to come to us and say, I'm having mental health problems. We got to go find them and have the resources there for them. So apologize for running a little long. Community input, we've had our first round. We got this fantastic person who's done work with the school systems, Penny Foster Fishman, to help coordinate these community input sessions. We had round one 3 times, 2 in person and 1 Zoom. Some people attended twice. Beth Pack attended twice of those. Josie Ballinger attended. So they were really well done. Feedback was extremely positive. We're going to take the input from those sessions, and then we have a round 2 coming up in May. And this is what came out of the 6 risk factors from those, which was, and we had table talk on those and chances for input, but there was, what's the biggest factor if we try and prioritize these? So trauma, in crisis, mental health challenges, bullied, lonely, and then unaware community. Second round, 2 sessions in person, May 16th, May 18th. It's okay if you didn't come to the first rounds. You can still benefit by coming to the second. And the whole benefit of these is getting people's input. So it's not, here we're telling you what to do. I put in the packet some of the information we used to bring people up to speed. But the input, the focus is on getting people to tell us their thoughts, what they can do, how can they help. Reading list just for reference. And I will tell you, we use the book at the top, The Violence Project, How to Stop a Mass Shooting Epidemic, but it overlaps a ton with the Secret Service work that was done. We didn't know that at the time, but if you put those together, they're very much aligned. And the state of Michigan is rolling out this behavioral threat assessment program, and again, TCAPS has attended on that. I think, and again, the SEC audit mentioned that as well too. You guys are doing a great job on fortifying the schools, but you got to get upstream. And so, again, much, much harder. And I think that might be it. So happy to take questions.
First of all, thank you for all of your work. I know it's a lot. And security is obviously one of the areas that the better you do, the less you see and acknowledge. So I do appreciate that it's one of it. When we're looking at everything else where you have a shiny new building at the end, it's kind of different. The only one that you don't have if you do it right, you have less to see. So, so thank you. I guess I'll open up to questions.
I mean, I really appreciate all the work that you and your team are doing, Jay. I know you mentioned I think it was a YouTube video about I was almost a shooter. And I think in that video, the student, young gentleman that was almost a school shooter, he was going to do it like the next day. And that afternoon, somebody invited him over to their house, and the mom made him like cookies or a pie or something. I forget what it was, but it's just like something like that you have, you have no idea what sort of impact you have on someone. And like, Scott said, there's nothing to show for it. The goal is that nothing happens, right? And so that's why it's so hard, to put effort into this, and because you want to see a result. Well, in this case, the result is nothing, and
Right.
so that's the goal. And so yeah, I just really appreciate all that you guys are doing.
Thanks. I think the result is not going to be measured by if we have a shooting or not. I think the result's really going to be measured by, do we have kids that are engaged? Are we finding a way to engage them? And again, that is, I don't know that's on a mission statement per se, but it's on, if you look at the things in your strategic plan, mental health is in there obviously a lot, and that's such a big, broad topic. But our society is broken. People are more lonely than they've ever been. And yet we have more technology and we have more ways to reach out, and they're lonelier than ever. That's such a dichotomy, but I think we have to recognize that and realize that, if you're lonely in Australia, you don't have access to weapons that can damage those people. I think they're just as lonely there too. But here, it's the world we live in, so we got to figure that out. And again, I think we can be the gold standard for that if we're willing to be messy, if we're willing to be wrong, but if we're willing to keep working at it.
Yeah, Jay, I just want to say, too, how much I appreciate your work on this. And it's obvious your passion for this and your statement about that it only takes one person to reach out and make a difference in somebody's life who does feel the ostracization or the loneliness. So, and I know as a teacher, you see that in the classroom. You're there with the kids and get a little bit more feel for their attitude, their behavior, where they are mentally. So I just appreciate your work in this, and keep up the good work.
Floyd, I think you just said the key thing. Having students in the task force was critical. And we really need to take layers out of things and give the teachers help in identifying those kids. They know the kids. I've talked to assistant principals. They said, I know 40, 50 of those Aaron Starks, who was the young man in the video, in our building.
Yeah.
So there's a disconnect there about we're working hard, the administrators and staffs are working hard to identify those kids, but we don't know what to do. You need parental consent, which I'm all for parental consent. You need staff that's hard to get. You need other things. But you know what? We can't afford not to work on that and to be wrong. And you got to go into it knowing it's going to be wrong. And we're going to learn as we go. But I think that again, kudos to the TCAPs for doing such a great job on physical security. But going back to that Venn diagram, that's just one tiny slice of the pie. And I think the gold is in those other things. If you can get to the well-being, if you can get kids unlonely, however you do that's where the gold is.
And I think, too, kudos to TCAPs, but teachers, counselors, administrators, because like you said, those are the guys who have the pulse on the students, and they see them, they know when their behavior changes.
Yes.
And so I think we do a good job of taking care of our kids. It's always a work in progress. And so, what you're doing in the community, and I appreciate that you understand that a lot of times parents want to be involved, but they might not always be able to be the best role model. So I really appreciate your position on that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not just on the schools. I know we have some really great community partnerships, Big Brothers Big Sisters. I know the Rotary meeting that you're involved in does a lot too. There's other community partnerships and people and just in the community. The community cares a lot, and I think it's very obvious. And like you said, you might not know the right thing to do, but I heard somebody at a presentation I was at the other day say, the only people that make mistakes are the ones that are doing something. And so, not doing something is
It's not an option.
not an option. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, to that point, one of the untapped resources, we are a community that is attracting a lot of retired baby boomers. We need to get their hands involved in this stuff. You can be a Norte coach, and do that. You can be a big brother. There was a great program called Kids Hope that, was very active and then went away after COVID. So, we need to find a way to bridge the gap and have those folks be engaged, because families need the support and kids need the support. And the best is a peer, but if you don't have a peer, then it's anybody. You know, if peer first, and then after that, it's anybody.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's one area that I think we keep on identifying too. You said even if you have parental consent and understanding and identification, even if you have all of that, even an engaged child who understands that they have issues, even now we have resources that, or we don't have resources to even get them the help. So I think from society, and government, the biggest thing we need is, because that's going to take a long time to fix. We need to be starting now on how do we subsidize mental health professionals to come through the system. How do we, because that is a multi-year, and that is truly, we're going to need it. We all need it.
You know, it's a great point. And for me, Scott, you know, you have to have people doing that work. And then you have to find a way to lever maybe retired people that were in the community that did that. You know, we got to be really creative because kids can't wait. I mean, you know, I never thought I'd be doing this thing for a year. You know, but kids can't wait for 3 years to have help and to work through that stuff. Some of them can, but God, you know, look at youth suicide. Look at, you know, unrelated to school things. It's the same issue. It just, you know, shows its head in different ways. And kids are telling us, and again, not all kids, you know, this is not all kids, but a lot of kids are telling us they need help. They don't have the answers. They're looking for a path again, just like these parents are looking, and community members looking for a path to help.
Yep, and I think that's the disturbing part is when you hear that, and even that you don't know how to help.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, and that's, you know, that's universal. People think this task force is going to say, buy metal detectors and wrap it up, you know, and that's just not the case. But you can't fix it, but I think you can make some change. You know, you can experiment and try some things and see what happens.
And my last comment is just, you know, good job, regardless of political or anything. You've done a good job at separating partisan issues as much as possible. So from community members, I haven't heard negative feedback on the organization and the group, which, again, rightfully wrong, you can argue anything, but it is great to hear that we actually at least have community buy-in from a wide range of the community, so that's fantastic. You did a great job.
One of the two smartest things we did was we said, we are here to support educators. It's not a bitch session. You know, you come and you are positive, or you make constructive comments. And then the second thing that we said was we're not going to talk about Second Amendment stuff. And that has been a huge blessing. And I'll tell you, the funny part of being kind of the face of that is the people who are gun advocates love you because you think they're not coming to take your guns. And the people who are more liberal love you because they think, oh, okay, you're going to help us on the mental health stuff that we're trying for. So, you know, it's really, it seemed pretty controversial maybe at first when people say, why aren't you talking about it? And then it turned out that was really a blessing. So.
Yep, good move.
Yep, good job.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank
again.
you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jerry.
All right. Moving on to procedural items. Do I have any changes to the draft minutes from the previous meeting? Hearing no.
I did not see any.
All right. Hearing no changes, minutes will remain as posted. Moving on to board policy review, deferring to Connie Taylor.
Yeah, so we have several to put before you today. One for the consent agenda, just actually piggybacking on what Mr. Berger had just presented, just a technical change to our health and wellness policy. Going through, we are starting to focus more not just on the physical health, which tends to be related to the wellness concept, but also very much the mental well-being of our students and staff. So we have changed the name of that team to Health and Well-Being. So we're just updating the policy to reflect that change.
Okay.
And then if you'll recall, for first reading, we're going to bring back for your consideration changes to our student discipline policy. We had brought them to you in the fall, working with Troon Law Firm. They're the law firm that we work with is in regard to student discipline. So adopting their policies we thought would best align with their ability to defend their own policies as we work through those situations. But they have policies that are not all in one bulk policy as we currently did. So as you'll notice, we used to have just board policy 5600 5600, and that embodied all elements of student discipline. It's their recommendation that we break those out into individual policies that talk about due process, students with disability, reinstatement of students following expulsion, and you can see that enrollment following misconduct in another district, suspensions, and so on and so forth. So it's basically taking our 5600 policy, updating it with the latest legal requirements, and then also embedding in that the TCAPS procedural things that we do in terms of student discipline. So now it currently aligns with our practice, and then I think it just delineates it so it's much easier to navigate than our previous policy.
Connie, I didn't, I'll be honest, I didn't compare and contrast the current policy with the changes. Were there material changes?
No, very, very similar. So any of the changes that you will see would just simply be statutory updates.
Okay.
And obviously, with any new policy, this will have multiple readings, chance for review, and
Correct.
comment.
This would just be your first reading, so we'll have it back for committee and the board meeting next month as well.
Okay.
It certainly seems to read much more clear to me, and I love the fact that we're joining practice with state policy, so state law.
Yeah, it's much easier if a family has a question to refer them to the specific policy to their issue versus having to read through all of the stuff that can be very complicated, especially when you get into discipline with students with disabilities. There's a lot of legal jargon in those that if somebody's reading that, unfortunately, their brain may go numb before they actually get to the piece that's pertinent to them. So having it broken out, I think, is much easier to navigate. And then also for your first reading, we've introducing Board Policy 8451. It's a new policy to address procedures to handle, unfortunately, head lice, which we'd like to think no longer exists, but it's around. We do have periodic outbreaks in different schools, so it's a policy that we worked with our school nurses on. And again, this just reflects our current practices in consultation with our health professionals. Any questions on those?
It's good.
Nope. And then I'm just checking placement on. So we had. Oh no, I'm sorry. I was trying to find it on the main agenda, but I see it now. So okay, perfect. No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Moving on without any other questions. Moving on to social media litigation. Deferring to Dr. Van Wagner.
Okay, so you may remember we had a case a little less than a year ago, and then recently with the Jewel lawsuit settlement. Well, Troon and the Franz Law Group, the same group that worked on that, is now doing a class action lawsuit against several social media companies. We have the details that are in the packet. And, you know, I was a little torn on this one at first of really if we should be doing this. I really, you know, I'm not really all that interested as a school district to be going after constant litigation and you know, chase lawsuits and money and all those things. But I actually had the chance to talk to a few colleagues on it, and one of the things that, you know, one particular said to me that resonated was, you know, there are so many resources and things we're having to put in to people and things to address some of these social media platforms that have literally been targeted towards kids, and many of the issues we're having with, you know, threats, and then all of a sudden, you know, that message disappearing, or that these platforms have literally been targeted towards kids and the problems that we have. And I thought, and they're like, so if for them it was more of a moral message of joining it versus the financial. And if there's a financial element, you know, so be it, and that obviously always helps. But this has a little bit more of a purpose in my mind that I agree with. And so at that point, I thought, you know what, I think I do need to bring this to the board and have a conversation on it. But it is my recommendation at this point, I think, because of those ideals, that we join this suit. And again, it's the same process that we don't pay anything unless there's something awarded. And so I'm just bringing it in front of the committee for thoughts on that.
I'm okay to leave it on the agenda for the May one. I share similar concerns with. I think social media is destroying much of our society and our mental health. But at the same time, as we choose to do it, and we don't, I'm just as bad. I don't restrict my kids as much as I should as well. So, but I do think the messaging probably has to change, and we probably have to have a discussion about it as applies to our society. So, I'm okay to at least put it on the agenda and probably move forward, but at least put it on the agenda.
Totally agree. I mean, we've already had one major incident here in TCAPS, so I'm all for the discussion.
All right, then I think we're good on that to move that to the discussion on the agenda. So moving on to the next discussion item, inter-district open enrollment for 23-24 and 24-25 school years. Defined to Dr. Owen.
Yes, so every year we have to approve the inter-district open enrollment agreement that our ISD has. And I'll remind you that it is outside of what some of the state agreements are, and what this does is essentially has an open enrollment policy for all the districts within the counties that encompass Northwest Education Services. Our taxpayers definitely pay considerable of resources to make sure that our children in our communities have adequate services, including career tech ed and special education services are outstanding, that quite honestly some other communities that would border those boundaries of our intermediate school district do not contribute. So this is a agreement that we have open enrollment amongst the districts within Northwest Ed. And so legally we have to have this every year. We have to have the board officially adopt it. I will also mention to you, this is an update that has gone through True Law, my understanding from the ISD. And so we do have a little bit of a policy implication that has to change. So our plan is to adopt this as we need to, and then next month we will have a revision to make sure that our policy aligns with the new document as presented by Northwest Ed to actually move this work forward. So any questions anybody might have, I'd be happy to take.
Do you know what policy, without detailed explanation, just the policy, or can you send out the policy that has to change?
Connie, do you have that? I know Erica or Megan, I don't know if you have that. I know Erica.
Yes.
Lottie's been working on
Yep,
that.
it will be included in your agenda packet. And just to clarify, it also include another year, so the 25-26 school year will be added to that as well.
Okay. All right. Perfect. That's fine. I said I know that's fine. I'm okay to do it in that order. It would be good to reference which policy we're planning on changing. All right, any other questions? Okay, so that it can go on the discussion item. And then next item is review of the May 8th Board of Education meeting agenda.
Okay, so a few questions for us here. So we have our normal call to order, our public comment. We do have, Megan, I'm just looking here for a recognition this month.
Correct. Yep, it's going to be Northwest Michigan Health Services for the clinic.
Okay, so I don't know that we have that on the agenda, do we? Am I missing it?
Oh, it should be item 4.
Got it.
Okay. Okay, yeah, my copy doesn't have it, so she printed this up for me before, so. Okay, so we will have that. And so we also have on the agenda, and Megan, please correct me if I'm have an outdated copy here. But from there, we have presentations listed for the Visual Performing and Applied Arts Part 1 and Safer Kids, Safer Schools presentation. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. Are you on
So
discussion, right? Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And so, did you say, am I on the discussion?
Yep, so, correct. We're with you now, John.
Okay.
Keep
well,
going.
Maybe I have a.
You jumped from 4 to 9, I think. So I don't think that you probably have any changes between
Yeah.
anything else but
Yeah, the biggest thing is that I just want to confirm, we've had the visual and performing arts do presentations at 2 committees. And we also obviously had Jay here for this committee. How do we feel, I just want to make sure we're valuing Wendy and her team's time. How does the board feel about another presentation at the actual board meeting? Does it felt like we need to do that for our community to hear it, that people watch board meetings and things a little bit more? Press just would be interested in the direction of keeping that on there, or is that maybe not needed? Thoughts?
I think I'm unfortunately I'm a realist that no one watches, for the most part, executive committee and especially not executive committee but other committees either. So I think it would be good because I think the information was great to see, especially what other school districts are doing and what we're talking about as well. So I do think it should be
Agreed.
if it works for Wendy.
Yeah, and I think they will. But my other question is that, is there anything that you did not hear, would like some more information on in that presentation possibly?
I wonder about taking some pictures of our current facilities and maybe putting a couple slides of that in their presentation.
I kind of touched on it as well with like the large. Obviously, we had a presentation with field houses, and whether we move forward is separate to that. But it sounded like that was something that they had acoustically. So I was just wondering, which isn't necessarily a board function per se, but is in part of the bond planning process of, is that something that benefits them? And if so, what specific requirements, what are other school districts doing with large spaces? So that was, I didn't want to get too far into it because I didn't want to put them on the spot, but that was just kind of I think you mentioned before, like lines.
Right. So
specific
then,
lines.
so maybe some OSHA standard? Is that where you're going?
No,
with
it wasn't
that?
even the OSHA, because I understand the OSHA, which hopefully will be, you can use with the, I understand how to adjust that space, but I think they said specifically they need large spaces with modern, updated tech. Large spaces with updated tech. So I guess I'm questioning, is that a large space? Is that like a gymnasium-sized space? Is it a much bigger space? Is it, an outdoors? What are we...
I think they were referring mainly to more and larger rehearsal space, and then of course performance venues, auditoriums.
That's why I wasn't sure if there was the rehearsal space of what that entails.
Yeah, so like a square footage. you're talking?
Square footage and tech and what type of buildings. Like, is that something that needs a certain, has to have a certain height ceiling for acoustical standard? Again, my music.
Well, so that's why that's why I was referring to OSHA, because I think Thomas referred to the decibel levels, in the space. So,
And I definitely think we need to address that for sure.
Yeah,
That was-
absolutely.
And these are all things that, as we see the other venues and get at what they are, and then talking with the architects and engineers, they worked on newer venues. We can kind of take all that information when we start getting into August and trying to get more detailed information. A lot of that. This is still pretty 30,000 foot big picture, but we'll get into more. I think that the key message is that the board understands a real good understanding of the needs, and then we can start to look at finer details as we boil this thing down to our ability to put a project together.
Yeah, and I wasn't going into too much detail. I was just trying to think of, obviously we have a facilities plan coming up and a facilities review as part of the bond process too. So how does that all fit in together with any needs from just a square footage? It really does come down to square footage, but obviously you need certain types of square footage.
And that's our August retreat, to start saying what does the board want to know, we'll do to them directly, and we'll gather all that information.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, and so then we'll have, obviously, Kathy Guy will be here for our Safer Schools presentation. One change that I know you did get this morning is we are going to have the health-based clinic at West Middle School will be on as a discussion item. From that was decided at our finance meeting yesterday. And for the most part, the rest are consent items as far as purchases. And again, the social media litigation, open enrollment, and that should be it as far as other than informational items.
Bond ratification resolution? Did you cover that?
Yes, and the bond. Yep, that was also discussed in finance as well. So.
I mean, I know that 9B, which is school safety updates, kind of a standing discussion item, but in this particular case, unless there's something else you were going to cover, do you want to strike it, considering we're going straight to?
A little bit. I still would like to keep it as an item, Scott. I think we're going to have maybe a little bit more budget information that kind of with school safety, with that, and so I'd like to keep it. There might not be a lot,
That's fine.
But I'd like to keep it still just to be able to throw a couple updates in.
Totally fine. So that was my only questions on the agenda. Any other questions?
Did you mention the discussion item on the district retirees? I've got that as
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. So can you repeat that one more time?
Did you mention the resolution for the recognition of the district retirees?
No, that also is there as well.
Okay.
So that would be item I, and then that will be. I think we have actually mentioned now every discussion item. All right. And then obviously everything else is standard. Second public comment, closing remarks, if any, and then adjourn. So, all right. If there's no other changes, then we're on the agenda, and we will move on. We can move on to informational items. HR Defendant Connie Taylor.
Yeah, as you just mentioned, we'll be asking the board to recommending a resolution for adoption to recognize our retirees, at least the ones that we've received thus far. We're currently at 16. 5 of those are teachers. 1 was mid-year, so we've had 4 teachers come in since the start of this start of the calendar year. So we'll bring those before the board for recognition of their service, and also just as a reminder, again, we're going to do our retiree reception on May 31st at West Middle School, small auditorium, 4:30 to 6 o'clock. So hoping that you'll be able to stop by and thank those individuals for their years of service with TCAPS.
Is that one on the calendar?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yep, and we adjusted the finance committee meeting for that morning, yep.
And just one other piece apart from that is, as you know, we're working to fill our 2 administrative vacancies. We still have the Montessori position posted. We're discovering that is a bit of a challenge to find someone with Montessori certification. Dr. Van Wagner experienced that firsthand, and noticing that there's only approximately right around 525 Montessori schools throughout the country. So individuals with specialized training in the Montessori area are not abundant, but we're extending that posting a little bit longer to see if we can attract some additional individuals for that. We have closed the posting for the Eastern Elementary position, and we will be doing first round interviews with some candidates starting on May 9th. So again, the goal is to go through that interview process and have a recommendation to the board by the end of May, so that we can make that announcement prior to the end of this current school year.
Yeah.
And that's all I have.
All right. Any questions?
Nope.
All right. Moving on to communications. Deferring to Ginger Smith.
Thank you. The first thing I wanted to bring up is that we will be celebrating the grand opening of the TCAPS Montessori building. So on June 6th at 4 o'clock, we will be having a ribbon cutting, and invitations will be sent electronically tomorrow. So I just wanted to give you a heads up to look in your inbox for that. And we are working closely with the Montessori building and some of the parents even who have a great interest in this celebration and making it fun for everyone. So we'll incorporate a handful of students into the event and hopefully have a good turnout for that event. Again, that will be on June 6th at 4 p.m. And then second of all, just wanted to touch on our pre-bond planning and where we're at with that. And that we will be having info sessions across the district on May 1 and May 2. All of those dates, times, and locations are on our website. We will have an after-school hours event at each building, along with evening sessions, one at Central High School and one at West Senior High School. We also have a website now dedicated to all the information going into the pre-bond planning, and you can find that under the About tab on our website. So along with that, we hope to release a survey soon. We've got some final touches being done with that. All of the info sessions and the survey are being managed through outside construction contractors. So these are not items that are being managed through TCAPS, but by this third party. So we're excited to see this information that can come to us so that we can start building a plan with the board if that is what is determined. So more to come on that. That's all I have.
So just a note on that, that's like our this is like the kickoff.
Just information
Board
seeking.
even have, like, it's not like there's a big plan that we'll be revealing. It's a very high level.
It is, yeah, much earlier stage than that. This would be just opportunities for the community to come together and share their thoughts and opinions on what might be an important consideration.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Any other items? All right. Without objection, then we can adjourn the meeting. So thank you.
Thank you.